The third short story, The Monks of Priest Lane.
As she hit the brakes hard, the car slid off the loose gravel drive and ended up with its nose in the thick thorn hedge running down the side of the driveway leading to her home.
For God's sake, Mum, what the hell are you doing? We nearly had a bad accident.
Didn't you see them?
See who?
Asked her daughter.
The monks. A line of them crossing the drive. They walked straight through the hedges as if they weren't there.
No, I didn't see anything. Did you have a drink at Christine's house before you picked me up from the station?
No, of course I didn't. You must have seen them. A line of about 15 walking one behind the other.
Well, I didn't. Anyway, I was answering Jill who texted me.
They were there. A whole line of monks dressed in dark habits. Their heads were down and so I couldn't see their faces.
Well, where are they now? They can't have just disappeared.
They did just vanish. That is what is so odd. They were so clear as they walked across the drive in front of the car. They came through the hedge on my side and then through the hedge on your side.
They couldn't have done. The hedge is too thick. Dad says he keeps it stock-proof so nobody could walk through it, Mum. When did you last have your eyes tested?
Please listen to me, Kate. I really did see them. Suddenly they seemed to vanish, one by one, when they were about 10 feet into the field. All of them, one by one, until they had all gone.
I'm sorry, Mum. It must be your eyesight.
Maggie, still shaking with the shock of it all, carefully reversed her car back onto the gravel. I'll look for damage when I get into the yard by the house, she muttered to herself. Checking the front of the car, she was relieved to find very little wrong. Not enough for her husband to query.
Are you going to tell Dad?
Asked Kate as she got out.
No. Please, Kate, don't tell anyone. I've got to work this out in my head myself.
She knew what she'd seen. Nobody was going to talk her out of it. But who were they? Certainly not from this period. They had to be ghosts. A whole line of monks. Where had they gone? How could they have just walked through hedges? Unless of course there weren't any there in their time. Someone, maybe 200 years ago, had lined the original cart track with hedges. These monks must have come from an earlier period. Maggie found it hard to sleep. The images kept going through her mind. She was awake when her husband slid into bed, but she pretended to be sleeping. Next morning, she got up early, with an excuse: she wanted to take the dog out. Slipping his collar on, she made for the gate, into what she now called the Monk's Field. Searching for any evidence, she found none. Surely if they had been real people, they would have left a path in the wet grass. Nothing. No signs of the hedges on either side having been disturbed. Puzzled and a bit confused, Maggie laid out the things for breakfast. Her husband, Brian, asked her if she was okay. She nodded her head and said nothing. As soon as she could, she began searching on Google for any clues. All she found was up-to-date information about the old farm. Maggie watched out of her bedroom window later, but saw nothing unusual. It was on the third night after her experience, she saw a light near the hedge, but it also vanished in the same place the monks had disappeared. Odd things began to happen to her. She found herself listening, and sometimes taking part in some Gregorian chants that seemed to be infiltrating her head. Why? She hated that sort of churchy music, she told herself. Why the chants? Did they have anything to do with the monks? A few weeks later, Maggie had an extraordinary dream. She dreamt there was a church or chapel in the field behind the barn located on one side of the center farmyard. It was rectangular and had stone walls 4 to 5 feet high. It was so vivid she'd taken the dog with her into this field. Nothing there, just an indentation in the field, as if the ground had sunk. What was going on? Could she have lived here 500 years ago? Could she have in fact been one of them? Maggie believed in past lives, and although anything was possible, she dismissed the idea. Something kept drawing her back to the monk's field. A friend came to visit. Maggie trusted her enough to open up about the dream, but still wasn't comfortable enough to talk about the monks. She knew Anne would accept what she had actually seen, but she told herself to see what happened in the field. Anne was also a dowser. She handed Maggie a pair of dowsing rods when they were near the dip in the dream field, and the two of them walked side by side. Suddenly Maggie let out a gasp. Her rods had crossed at exactly the same moment her friends had, and confirmed there was definitely something buried there. Something quite a long way down. And no, it wasn't a church or a chapel, but more likely to be a hospital, or even a plague house.
Lots of people died here. There is still so much torment coming from the earth under our feet. I am getting horror and pain and great sickness. I will try to put them at rest and release them from their terrible deaths. They are still trapped, you see.
She turned to Maggie.
Why am I picking up that you were somehow involved?
Come and have a cup of coffee, and I will tell you the rest.
The two women sat down together, and haltingly at first, Maggie opened up, telling her about her horror of nearly running over the line of monks. She explained her surprise and confusion about how they kept disappearing one by one. Her daughter hadn't seen anything, and she, Maggie, hadn't told anyone, including her husband, who probably would have laughed and made fun of her.
You are the first person I've talked to about it.
Anne didn't laugh or tell her she must have been dreaming. She merely asked to be shown where it had happened. Leaving their coffee, they went through the gate into the field. Maggie showed Anne where she had seen them coming through the hedge before vanishing.
They didn't stop walking, just kept on, and then there was nothing.
She told her friend. Anne asked her to go and stand by the gate while she worked. She retraced the steps the monks had taken, and suddenly she stopped, as though coming up against a brick wall. After several minutes, while the pendulum she was holding moved sideways and then forwards, she said,
Maggie, you can come over now. I think I understand. I stopped because I saw a building in front of me with a heavy oak door. The door was closed to me because I am a stranger. I think you would have been allowed in. At this moment, I don't know why. Your monks entered the doorway and disappeared from sight because they were inside a building.
Maggie stood there feeling stunned at this revelation. Then she asked,
Where is the building now?
Long gone. It may have been destroyed by fire. I think it was deliberately burnt down. The walls you saw at the other building were like these. I think if you dug down about 3 to 4 feet, you would find them. What I would like to do is to try and work out the overall size and shape of the building.
Anne, using her dowsing rods, while moving around the field, putting small sticks in wherever she found a corner. After about half an hour, she was satisfied. The building hadn't been rectangular but L-shaped,